Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Supradeep Das, and I'm a research intern at the Institute of Chinese Studies, New Delhi. On behalf of the Institute of Chinese Studies, I welcome you to today's Wednesday seminar, Analyzing China's Policy Priorities Through the Lens of the 2026 Two Sessions. Today's discussion focuses on the significance of the two sessions, the National People's Congress and the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, as key institutional platforms that articulate and legitimize China's policy direction. The presentation will explore how these annual meetings go beyond formal legislative functions to serve as strategic mechanisms for consolidating policy coherence and legal authority within the Chinese system. In particular, today's seminar will also address recent shifts such as the transition from high speed to high quality development and the emergence of smart economy framework. It will also highlight developments in national development law, including the new legislative measures that institutionalize planning and reinforce state-led growth. By situating these within broader themes of economic modernization, technological self-reliance, and social stability, this seminar aims to shed light on China's evolving governance model and its wider implications. The speaker for today's seminar is Dr. Bhavna Singh, who is currently a fellow at the Chintan Research Foundation, New Delhi. Her research interests are China's domestic and foreign policy, with special focus on ethnic nationalism and socio-cultural issues. She is the author of China's Discursive Nationalism Contending in Softer Realms, published in 2012. She has co-edited a volume on India, China, and the sub-regional connectivities in South Asia, published by SAGE in 2015, and edited the BRI and the Indo-Pacific Reinventing Traditions, published by Routledge in 2025. The chair for today's seminar is Dr. Bhim Subba, who is an assistant professor at the Department of Political Science, School of Social Sciences, University of Hyderabad, and an adjunct fellow at the Institute of Chinese Studies, New Delhi. His research explores the intersection of China studies, domestic politics, comparative studies, East Asian politics, and international affairs. Now, before I hand over to the chair, I would like to request all the participants to follow a few housekeeping rules. All the participants shall be muted during the seminar. Questions may be posted in the chat box along with your name and affiliation. Alternatively, you can also use the raise your hand option during the Q&A session. I shall now call upon the chair. Over to you, Dr. Subba. Thank you.
Thank you, Institute of Chinese Studies, and good afternoon to everyone, and especially to the speaker today, Bhavna, a colleague of mine, or like me, and really looking forward to your today's very important talk, nonetheless. And also, Supradeep, for your very generous introduction here. So, yeah, having said that, Yang Hui today, or to say these two institutional meetings from in March, annual meeting in March, actually plays a very important role in understanding China's, or so to say for China scholars. Help us decipher these two Liang Hui, as I say, through policy perspectives. And Bhavna, the floor is yours. I'm looking forward to a very interesting talk. And, yeah, thank you, Bhavna.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, ICS.
You're muted. Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, please go.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you are.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, ICS, for giving me this opportunity to present my views. Today, basically, as we all know, Dr. Bhim is, he has been looking into this issue for more than a decade, and he has done so much work on, particularly on the Liang Hui. So I'm just going to speak on what has happened in the meeting this year, particularly. So just to see how the tide is shifting in China's policy framework, and how it is different from the previous two sessions that have been held earlier. And also, what direction is the Chinese policy making going to take in the near future? So I just have a few slides that basically help me to not forget the salient points. Um, can you move to the next slide, please? Yeah. So basically, starting with the basic development, that is what happened during these two sessions meeting, was the first important development was the presentation by Li Qiang of his work report, and second was the rollout of the 15th five-year plan. What were the major targets set during the 15th five-year plan? They basically pointed out that China's annual growth target would be set at 4.5 to 5% for the coming few years. Other major targets included a consumer price index increase of around 2%, a fiscal budget deficit of around 4% of the GDP, to be able to bring about addition of around 12 million new urban jobs, and a 7% increase in the defense budget, which basically compared to the last few years, that is 2023, 2024, and 2025, it's not much, has in fact decreased by 0.02%, but yet substantive enough to kind of help China achieve the kind of military modernization that it wants to achieve in the next few years. The next major target was to achieve our research and development spending, which can grow by around 10%. So, what was the official view that the Chinese media took about this two sessions? The official commentaries described the 2026 to 2030 period, which is the period of the 15th five-year plan, as playing a pivotal connecting role in China's longer-term development trajectory towards the basic realization of socialist modernization by 2035. So why did they use the word pivotal connecting role? Because they believe that by 2049, the realization of socialist modernization would have been completely achieved. So whatever they have done so far has been towards this aim. And this particular five-year plan also proves to be a pivotal connecting dot in the larger overall game plan that the Chinese policymakers have envisioned for the next few years. In addition, China's commitment to achieving socialist modernization was the basic larger theme of the two sessions. Can we have the next slide, please? And what were the major takeaways? During these two sessions, the NPC reviewed the report of the work of the government, plus the report on the execution of the central and local budgets for 2025 and the draft central and local budgets for 2026. The report on the implementation of the 2025 plan for national economic and social development, and it reviewed the 2026 draft plan for national economic and social development report, that is the NDRC report. Besides that, there have been a few laws that were institutionalized. First was the National Development Law. This is the most important development, since it showcases how the overall ideology that amongst the Chinese policymakers has changed. If one looks at how historically it evolved, one would see that Deng Xiaoping had actually adhered to the dictum of growth first and rules later. So basically, Deng Xiaoping let there was fragmented authority, and he let economic dynamics take their own turn instead of institutionalizing the five-year plans or the various other reports that had been discussed during the various plenums. So if one considers why basically this development five-year plans were not institutionalized earlier, then the main reason is basically that the earlier Chinese leaders feared institutionalization, because they did not want they did not even give much focus on institutionalizing this, because they wanted the party organs to be the main decision makers and not based on rule of law. So this is a major development in the sense that Xi Jinping, since he has taken power, has focused on institutionalizing all these basically laws, these frameworks, whatever has been going on in the plenums, and he has basically moved on from Deng Xiaoping's growth first and rules later dictum, to now institutionalizing everything so that everything can be done according to the rules and norms laid out in the constitution. So another law that was adopted was the Ethnic Unity and Progress Law. This also is something which has been in the process for a long time. But yet again, it was only codified in this particular two sessions. Why was it done this way? Because now Xi Jinping believes that they have reached a kind of level where the opposition to the center has become controlled. So, given the fact that since 2012 till now, Xi Jinping has been trying to uh, form a kind of a surveillance state, and several kind of work meetings have gone on in terms of their ethnic assimilation efforts that were taking place in Xinjiang, Tibet, Inner Mongolia, as well as the autonomous region, the Hong Kong and Macau, the administrative regions. So now, in an entire decade of policies that they were the policies that were basically very controversial in nature, and almost got the Chinese state to be dubbed as a surveillance state. These policies now face very less resistance. So if you look into this, in this particular law that has been codified, the Chinese state has made it mandatory for all citizens to kind of help attain the unity of the country. That is, Chuan Kochia, Thung Ita, Minsu. So, if you look into the various articles of this law, you will find out that the government has made it mandatory for all communities to learn Mandarin. Their texts, the original indigenous texts have been replaced by Mandarin texts. Plus, they have made it even the law mandates all the children to be taught not only Mandarin through high school, but it also can prosecute parents or guardians for instilling detrimental views amongst the children, as it can affect the ethnic harmony in China. So it is not only prescriptive, but also it has put in parameters or structures in place which can actually execute or actually prosecute parents or guardians if they're found to be instilling detrimental views amongst their children. So this basically shows us the scope and scale of the penetration of the central authority into the lives of the Chinese common people. So, also this ethnic law, they have codified, they have set out the fourth week of September every year as the Ethnic Unity week, Ethnic Unity spread week. So every year in September, and during the fourth week, the state will bring out policy propaganda, which will basically help into institutionalizing the ethnic unity law amongst the people. Even the progress of the way the elites would kind of get co-opted into the central mechanisms, that is the party, will also depend on how people perform according to this ethnic unity law. So, besides the National Development Law, this is a very important development, because despite the ethnic assimilation policies that the state had been following for several years, in fact, right from the establishment, this now codifies and institutionalizes all those practices. So you have a week, a special celebration week. You can prosecute parents, and you can basically bring out any kind of propaganda. The state can bring out propaganda. So this is the larger plan that the Chinese Communist Party has. But what is actually, if you look at what is the practical use of this law, if you look at the look on the ground, this falls into in kind of, it falls within the parameter of this AI plus strategy that China is following in its 5-year plan that is going to be rolled out. So what is this AI plus strategy? You cannot have children in school learning AI, innovation, quantum, all this kind of things only if you have to kind of translate everything into the ethnic languages. So I think one of the major determinant of bringing out this policy is to kind of make it large scale Mandarin, due to this fact that China rapidly wants to advance into the AI plus model of the society. So that is one determinant. Now, what are the other laws that were institutionalized? Laws that were institutionalized was the financial stability law and the basically a new financial law and a dedicated financial stability law. This year, Chinese Premier Li Qiang's government work report presented at the NPC set China's annual target at 4.5. This actually renewed hopes of continuing to open up to the world by reducing its negative list for foreign investment access to 29 items. The report reiterated China will stick to a proactive fiscal policy, and implying that China will continue with an expansionary macroeconomic strategy. The plan is basically to bolster counter and cross-cyclical adjustments and implement more proactive macro policies to keep employment, enterprise operations, markets, and expectations stable. The 15th 5-year plan also buttressed Chinese policies which basically try to avoid the beggar thy neighbor practices, and how that within the international community, cohesion must be prioritized. In terms of FDI, China is working to reverse a decline which fell 5.7% year on year to just over 92 billion yuan in January, following a 9.5% drop over the course of 2025. China has added 200 sectors to a list of those eligible for foreign investment incentives. Moreover, Li Qiang said that foreign firms would be treated in the same way as the domestic firms. This would allow enterprises from all kind of countries to come and invest in China. China has also granted zero tariff treatment for 100% tariff lines to all least developed countries that have diplomatic relations with China. Then the 5-year outline also, it's very ambitious in terms of setting up parameters for China to become a financial superpower. Towards this aspect, the NPCSC also said it would amend existing laws, including the People's Bank of China law and the Banking Supervision and Management law. These initiatives are basically in line with the reforms announced by President Xi Jinping in 2024 in his speech that laid out basically 6 targets towards financial consolidation, which was a strong central bank, robust regulations, sound financial institutions, a deep talent pool, leading international financial centers, and the yuan achieving global reserve currency status. So through these 6 targets that Xi Jinping had laid out, China has declared an intent to build a national strategy to turn China into a financial superpower. And the other law that was basically codified during these 2 sessions was the Ecological and Environmental Code. So in total, we can see around 4 to 5 very important laws were codified during the 2026 2 sessions. What is largely laid out during the ecological and environmental code is basically China's blueprint to reduce its carbon imprint on the globe, and which basically is based on Xi Jinping's quest and his basic emphasis on resilience, self-sufficiency, security over growth, openness, and reform. Xi Jinping basically wants to achieve the agenda that have been set during the global climate COP30, basically which was also recently held, and China is trying to achieve those goals that it is promising to the world. And if you look at the even if practically you look at the quality of air in China today, if I remember correctly, when I had gone first time in 2008 to now, the skies have completely become clear. And in 2008, one could not raise their heads and see the sky completely. It used to be all black. And China was globally criticized for, development without the green transition. But if you see the development in the last 15 years, it has been tremendous. Now, not only is China committed to development, but it has also been able to reduce its carbon imprint on the globe. Um, can we have the next slide, please? So basically, if we look at the coverage of this two sessions in the media, people have pointed out how the agenda has been extensive, but basically, even though there were lesser people sitting in the hall per se, and some of the media mentioned that the audience was thin, but the agenda has been really thick. What else did the agenda? What else do the two sessions point out? Basically, there has been a new indicator on carbon intensity of the economy, which was introduced during the 15th five-year plan. This is replacing an indicator on energy intensity, which links well to the government's twin carbon goal, that is peaking before 2030 and net zero by 2060. So these are just some indicators that I have picked up from the MERIC's website. These basically point out the differences between the 9th to the 15th year five-year plan, and how have these indicators shifted during the 15th year plan. So if you look at the two graphs and you compare the stress on economic development, green development, innovation development, we can see that the graph has been shifting towards more green development, and there has been more focus on people's livelihood and well-being, which was not there in the previous five-year plans. So these are some aspects that have also been highlighted by various other reports that have come out online. Next slide, please. So also, what has been the major focus of the 15th year plan? The major focus is to build a unified national market with five key areas. One is unifying market institutions and rules, improving connectivity of market infrastructure, integrating markets for production factors and resources, creating unified markets for goods and services, and ensuring fair and consistent market regulation. And the Chinese authorities have also pledged to curb improper competition that distorts market dynamics. So what does this tell us about the Chinese policymakers' ambition to basically become self-reliant and self-sustaining, focus on domestic-driven consumption, because so far there have been focused on exports, and because of the US tariffs that kind of made a dent into what China had been, the practice that it had been been very accustomed to so far, because China's exports worldwide had driven its growth at a massive pace for the last 30 years. But now China wants to shift this focus to domestic consumption. because that is not only going to help it you kind of absorb the pressures from the global system, but also there is an emphasis on a completely new level of development, which is based on AI, quantum, space, and which is not no longer simply no longer simply based on manufacturing or production of wheat and rice or other tea, these kind of in domestic products. Next slide, please. So the narrative has been built around high quality development. What are the major traits of this high quality development? There has been a policy shift from real growth target to growth should be maintained within a reasonable range. So there is entire debate about how China's growth is now, economy. Some people say that it is in decline, but it's not exactly decline. If you look at the reduction in the real growth targets, it basically showcases that this kind of reduction was actually expected. It is a kind of a leveling given the fact that the economies in the world are also realigning their growth rates and the growth target for the future, depending on how the economic currents are visible in the other countries as well. So many people have pointed out that even China cannot replicate. Few major experts have said that even China cannot replicate the growth success that it enjoyed since 1978 in the current scenario, given that there are so much instability in the economies across the world. So, if it cannot replicate that same kind of growth that it achieved over the last 30 years, what it is trying to do now? It is basically trying to spread the growth, not only in terms of provinces, but also in terms of what it can offer to the other countries in terms of cooperative development. So under this high quality development, they want to amend existing institutional laws. They want to carry forward the new development philosophy, which was basically outlined. This was outlined in the 13th five-year plan. This includes supply side structural reforms, new quality productive forces, dual circulation, the debate on common prosperity, which came around in 2021, and the narrative on the ecological civilization, which was just outlined last year by Xi Jinping. These new quality productive forces, or Xin Shi Shang Chengli, so basically they're trying to upgrade their industrial base, meaning foreign investors have now gained access to more efficient supply chains, advanced manufacturing ecosystems, higher value innovation hubs, and they also want to set up a unified national market, which in Chinese they have termed as Chuan Kuo, Tung Ita Shirchang. Shirchang is basically market. So if they want to build a unified national market so that all the regions can absorb the shocks equally, and they don't have to deal with a kind of imbalanced growth in the West and the East. So they want to put in place modern industrial system, which is Xian Tai Hua Chang'e Thixing. Thixing is the system. So a modern industrial system and technology, which is basically based on technological self-reliance. And as I pointed out earlier, their main goal is to kind of reduce carbon imprint and reach carbon peaking. According to the law of the People's Republic of China on national development plans, they're trying to put in this new system according to based on the based and codified into the constitution. So they have called it Thui Tung Kao Chiliang Fachan Thui Chen Kuo Chia Chili Thixing He Chili Nangli Xian Tai Hua. 全面建设社会主义现代化国家，根据 constitution, Shruting Panfa. So this is what they have laid out constitutionally in terms of their goal. They want to put in this new kind of unified system which will help China achieve the targets that it has laid out for itself. What are the other aspects? China's push for high standard opening of signals wider market access, especially in services, digital industries, finance, and green technologies. Foreign firms can now expect clear entry channels and improved IP protections and opportunities to collaborate in frontier sectors. This is how it will span out in the international sector. Can we move to the next slide, please? Yeah. So what is the basic goal that was set out in these the 5-year plan and the 2 sessions? Their main focus is on urbanization. China aims to maintain GDP growth within an appropriate range and raise the urbanization rate to around 71% and ensure labor productivity grows faster than the GDP. This is their answer to the question of the fact that several people have raised concerns about the demographic dividend in China, which is declining day by day. So they believe that instead of in case they fall short on the demographic dividend, the answer would lie in terms of urbanization, which is why they are trying to urbanize their cities, villages, and also provide AI plus development to all their ethnic minorities. This emphasis also points to a policy agenda which is focused not merely on scaling promising sectors, but also securing the underlying capabilities needed to sustain them. So, promising sectors like AI, technology-driven growth. So they're not merely focusing on kind of promoting new technology, but also securing the underlying capabilities, which means that the systems needed to sustain them. So what they are doing is that they have started making energy banks. So because in like specifically speaking about the carbon sector, they have started building energy banks so that whenever there is an energy loss, they can depend on the energy banks and then come back to the normal activity when there is no requirement. On this slide, I have put a kind of, it's an indicative slide on the economic and social development that China plans for the next few years. Even I believe it may not be completely visible, but if you kind of go to the MERICS, to the CGTN website, you'll be able to take a look at these indicators, which are basically China's GDP growth rate, its annual labor productivity growth, permanent urban residents, how they are shifting from rural to urban areas. Then how much is China investing in the R&D spending, number of high value patents, value added core industries. So this is a slide that I picked up from CGTN, and it basically gives you a clear idea as to where all China is planning to put its money. Next slide, please. Yeah, so what also came out of this particular 2 sessions was not just the mention was not just on the national development planning law or the ethnic unity law, but also there were a few mentions of India in the during the 2 sessions, which was a little strange also, and also it also points to the fact that China's foreign policy has now been, it has begun to be driven by its immediate requirement needs of the neighborhood, and also an acknowledgement of India's presence as the next second best in terms of the global leadership. So its foreign policy trajectory is not only changing from a normative position of being a provider for global public goods like climate or infrastructure, but it also shows that it is also taking notice of other players in the game for the reaching the top position in terms of who's going to be the next major superpower. If you look at the development of the Chinese policy priorities over the last five-year plans, beginning from the 11th to the 12th, 13th, and the 14th five-year plan, we can see that there has been change in narratives, change in their descriptions of their goals. Like in the 11th five-year plan, they basically changed the policy directives from Chihua to Koihua, which basically means not just plans, but also giving a direction to the next generation in terms of what they would envision. And then from local conditions to new development philosophy to long-term goals. Now, during the 15th year, five-year plan, they have come down to a core level for plan implementation. So this showcases China's incorrigible quest for a Marxist-Leninist welfare society. This is something I believe that the Chinese have been, even though it's not emphasized in the documents, but their entire goal of achieving this socialist modernization by 2049, this actually is driven by that Marxist logic of moving on from that system where you've put everybody in as a cog in cog in the system, and they are basically not just the productive labor force of that system, but now they are transiting to that state where they're talking about the welfare of the entire society. So this entire logic is, particularly visible in terms of how China has brought its production from the ground level to now turning into a welfare state. As I was speaking about the other foreign policy perspective, that is India's rise, China had for a long time kind of neglected, and not only just neglected, but had kept a very kind of a condescending attitude towards India's rise. But now that China is noticing that India has held on to its strategic autonomy in terms of decision making, and it is not it doesn't have that kind of very active participation even in the Puao Regional Forum that was held last month. So China has begun to send out these signs to India in terms of how they had wanted more East Asian cohesion in terms of India-China relationship, but India has held on to its strategic autonomy. So India is also giving that sign that we are an equal player in terms of economic growth, in terms of international standing, in terms of how the world will emerge in the next few years. So China is also taking notice of this development, this shift in the regional dynamics. During this entire institutionalizing of the two sessions that it happened last month in Beijing. So that was my overall reading of the two sessions this year. I now look forward to the chair's remarks.
And so many variables for us to really think on. And yeah, some of the with regard to both the domestic and the foreign, variables that you're pretty engaged with, and especially your take on how ethnic law was being, framed, and also with regard to private property and private enterprises laws and all, and also on your take on how the final one, that how even India was being discussed. And mind you, we are all Indians here really trying to look into decipher what India is being looked at. And definitely in your presentation, we could see that China is definitely noticing India's rise. And at the same time, India being one of the largest electoral democracies in the world, how the resilience of that Indian economy and politics has really reshaped the process of political churning across systems here. And also my take on how you have really looked into the document per se, like looking into very minutely on how it has shaped China's foreign policy, at the same time, development perspectives and goals also. Now, having said that, uh, your also intervention with regard to many laws being amended in China today. Now, this is a very important, observation, and also people give very less thought on that, because amendments of laws is very important, and mostly many people only give discussions with regard to government work report. But apart from the government work report, there are so many laws being implemented in order to implement that government work report and the National Development Plan. So, if I am not wrong, there are more than 104 laws being revamped and also amended also, and with regard to institutional sharing of laws in China. And Bhavna, I would have really, like although I would like to come back at the last, but nevertheless, I just want to provoke you here with regard to some of these laws with regard to arbitration, foreign trade laws, private sector laws, and atomic energy laws. These are being some of the laws being really fleshed out in the National People's Congress decisions. And these laws have really also, they work in tandem with what is China thinking about future. Cyber security law, definitely. Maritime security law, definitely. So I think we cannot just, as a scholar and also, looking into it, how can we really correlate the development of these laws to national, policy objectives? And I think that, analysis would have been really helpful for all of us. And also, you have said that with regard to the China's foray into ecological and environmental code, development of these codes, I think it's a right time, because it not only is so comprehensive, but it also is trying to shape the global climate change efforts, also what China is doing post Trump's taking away from, or US taking away from, withdrawing from the Paris Peace Climate talks and all. So I think these are some of the instances that really we can see how China has developed. Nonetheless, I will, ask the floor or or the audience to raise questions and comments. And I think our folks at ICS will help us to pose questions to you. Yeah. And there are already some questions. If some folks from ICS can help the speaker to read, that would be much better. Thank you. Or you can raise your hands and ask questions.
Yes, so the first question is from Akhil Ahmed, who is a research intern at the ICS. His question is, given the shifting narrative around China's relation with India, how should we interpret the role of national development law in shaping China's external economic engagements, particularly in regions like South Asia? Do you see legal frameworks emerging as tools of geo-economic statecraft, especially in contexts of competition and cooperation with India?
Yeah, this aspect is particularly relevant in terms of how China is trying to use the trade, technology, finance as tools of power. Basically, then it translates into an entire geo-economic shift in the statecraft. This is obviously more visible in terms of multilateral forums when it comes to SEO, BRICS Plus, and several other even bilateral deals where the norms like intellectual property rights, or how China is developing internally is kind of transposed on the other countries, especially India, and how we defend our own system, how we defend our practices, and how we defend what we have to offer to China. And because as we can see from the trade deficit that we have with China, that we are more dependent on them. But that does not does not mean that we should restrain from kind of collaborating with them on any kind of trade, or it doesn't mean that India is not playing a good game in terms of geo-economic statecraft, because these are if today you have to survive economically, you have to do trade with China. And when you look at how India has been able to benefit from the loans that we have taken from AIIB, from earlier we were much more dependent on the World Bank and the ADB, but getting that kind of offers, that the kind of offer that China is giving on very relatively lower rates of loans. So India has been able to use this particular leverage, and they have invested heavily in India. China has invested heavily through the AIIB, and the progress is visible in terms of how we have overcome a lot of very significant poverty obstacles over the last decade. So we cannot say that China's geo-economic strength is it's unachievable for India. Rather, we should put in maybe even learn from their kind of models. Now that it is codified, now that it is institutionalized in the national development law, we can study it more, in greater depth, and then we can see how their practices have evolved over the last few years, and we can also learn from that and kind of try and emulate those practices if possible, in terms of maintaining our own democratic structure. So it does not always boil down to comparative politics in terms of how we compare with China in terms of economy, or how we compare in terms of them in terms of democracy. What it actually what the institutionalization of these laws does give India an opportunity to kind of study their patterns. So, which is why I mentioned that how beforehand, Deng Xiaoping was against this. He didn't believe in this codification. He was afraid of instability that could be caused because of democratic elements, like if they let in democracy, and if they let in several parameters that India has grown up with. If they could have had democracy in China, perhaps they feared instability so much that they would rather prefer state capitalism and control of markets over democracy. So there was fragmented authoritarianism, and this allowed China to kind of follow a model which had a unified, which led to today. It has led to something of a kind of a unified market, and it has allowed a certain kind of economic dynamism at provincial levels, which is not very visible to the common eye, but it is something that from which that India can actually benefit. And if this institutionalization will actually allow us to study in a more greater depth in the coming few years. I would also like to kind of clarify here on the chair's remarks that how China has also talked about cybersecurity law, maritime law. Sorry, I did not touch upon those aspects because my focus was largely on the two major laws that were passed, the National Development Law and the ethnic unity law, but of course they are as equally important as these laws, and I'm sure that China has been revamping these structures to kind of fall in the place into the entire overall structure of the 5-year plan that they envision for the next 5 years. So obviously the cyber security law and the maritime law will also they will also point out towards the kind of unified approach that state has towards development. But I think I will look into those aspects in my paper in future.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you have other question, yeah. from
The next question is from Mahua Chakravarti. She is saying that regarding the 15th five-year plan start, we see a focus on labor productivity outpacing GDP and new laws for ethnic assimilation. Do you believe Beijing is trying to institutionalize a fortress society model where internal social homogenization is now considered a prerequisite for economic survival in an increasingly fragmented global order?
Yes, certainly their focus has become more inwards towards their own society. And I think it's both a cause and a kind of result, that it's not just a prerequisite, but this has happened because of the way that Chinese technological evolution has progressed. So, given the fact that they are now focusing on AI, robotics, quantum, aerospace, and they don't have that much of demographic dividend, so their labor supply is, it's in a critical state, and they have promoted migration policies. They have allowed inward migration from various other countries to kind of cover up this shortage of labor. But the if you look at the entire process, it is not just a prerequisite, but it's become a process in itself. It's become a cause and effect relationship, where the kind of growth that they envision has itself led them to become a more a kind of a more labor binding society. So there are so many cases in the International Labor Organization at the level of the UN, where so many countries have complained about China's labor laws. They have complained about their model of this productivity. This kind of productivity cannot be kind of emulated by any other country, because they put in insane amount of hours, from 9 to perhaps 9 in the night. So this kind of investment that the labor is doing, it borders on that inhuman labor usage. But this is, if you look at the motivation of the common people, if you look at whether the Chinese themselves are complaining about their model, you'll find very less scope for that. I think the reason why they are not complaining and rather alluding to the leadership's goal is because of the kind of inherent, nationalist discourse, inherent patriotic re-education that has been ingrained into these citizens over the last 1 decade, or even prior to that. These are now, I think China has become a more silent society when it comes to protest, opposition. There are very few instances of protest that are now visible. The growth narrative has so much kind of encapsulated the entire imagination of the common people, that the resistance is growing lesser and lesser. There is lesser and lesser resistance to the kind of labor laws that exist, and the kind of capital investment that China is making inside the country. So they're all kind of they're ensnared with this narrative of development, which has kind of made them the kind of society which is more silent in terms of resistance, and more they are more and more prone to abide by the expectations of the party. It's proving their loyalty to the party, and supporting. Earlier, he was known as Shi Tata. Now he's become Shi Ye. So, they all want to prove their loyalty to the system. And in this, it's become a mad race towards this entire technology-based society. So I think it's both a cause and an effect in that sense.
We have a raise hand option from Mr. Ayan Datta. So could you please ask your questions?
Yes, sir. Good evening, ma'am. I am Ayan Datta. I did my MA from University of Hyderabad in the previous year. I was particularly taken in by your focus on internal market restructuring in China, because the intuitive sense that we get is China, with all its centralization, is already a kind of unified market internally. This document speaks of creating a more homogeneous, a more sort of regular, a more kind of unified, rationalized internal market. What existed before this that this policy is trying to changing is trying to change? That was my question. Thank you.
Yeah, so what existed before this was a greater, you know, a more fragmented kind of uh, procurement system where people used to go to the villages, procure from the farmers, and then slowly it would climb up the system. But now, what they're with this unified market, what they're trying to do is that reduce the middle rung, basically reduce the middlemen and directly procure from villages or the source, and then making it available at the best possible platform. You know, this is where in China has envisioned the role of AI in terms of making it a even more greater level playing field for the farmers, for the manufacturers, for basically the source. Earlier, this source was scattered. Now they are trying to unify the market in terms of the availability of the going down to the basic source and reduce the middlemen. So I think that is the entire vision that they want to introduce technology in a way that uh, some experts have even argued that they're trying to reduce the human component in terms of development. But I think machines can't really replace the human component. What they're trying to do is simply cover up the less and less demographic dividend that they have.
Understood, ma'am. Thank you.
So the next question is from Mr. Atman Deshpande. He is a research intern at ICS. His question is regarding the new quality productive forces policy introduced in 2023 by President Xi Jinping. The heavy state role in determining technological winners and losers raises a questions about market efficiency. While some people may indicate that excessive government intervention, even while promoting tech, can have a negative impact on actual innovation. Can you please elaborate on this angle?
Sorry, I didn't get the last part of the question. Innovation?
Innovation and intervention, even while promoting tech, it can have a negative impact on actual innovation. So, can you please elaborate on this angle?
Okay. It's a very layered question. Innovation, I think if you look at the practical use of technology and how China is trying to make it a part of everyday life, then you will realize that they're trying to minimize the kind of negative impact of the technology on everyday life. For instance, AI as a tool in academic research. So, of course, it kind of increases dependence of the researcher on AI, and it also leads to a lot of more of plagiarism, a lot more of it's basically you are relying on others and not using your own brains to do research. But then, if you look at how research is actually being done in Chinese universities, you'll realize that they have put in structures in place which will help you identify that you use the AI as a tool to kind of supplement your research. But then you should not use it as a tool to as the primary tool of your research. So what they mean here is like whenever the foreign students go to Chinese universities, they will they will easily give you access to all the AI tools and technology which will help you translate Chinese articles and their Chinese research thesis and everything into English, and then this will reduce your work by a huge scale. But in that sense, then you have to rely on the primary text as well, and then you have to compare how the AI tool is actually giving it to you. Then you'll realize the difference between the two, and then you'll be able to make a judgment for yourself whether you want to depend simply on the AI tools, or you want to go back to the original text and use that for your base. So there is a provision for using these innovation and these technologies to assist you in that work. But the finally the choice of what you're using and how much you're dependent on this technology is quite individual in that sense. And I don't think it has so much of negative impact on the day-to-day life of the people. In fact, technology has facilitated, the kind of development that we see in China today. It has facilitated a kind of a comfortable lifestyle for a common man today.
So the next question is from Professor Manoranjan Mohanty. He is asking that, do you see greater professionalization of the CPC organs in transiting to high quality development rather than allowing respective specialized agencies to play this role?
Specialized agencies. I think professionalization, it's a very difficult question to answer in the sense that earlier everything was done through the party organs. So even today, Xi Jinping has again re-centralized the entire authority under him, and has placed a lot of emphasis on party loyalty, and promotions are based on your loyalty to the leader. How much of professionalism actually is involved completely depends on your ability to perform on the ground in terms of your field, in terms of how much you have done in the field, where you have been based for the last a decade or so, or how you have reached this particular place. So I think in the initial stages when you climb in the party, there's a lot more professionalism in terms of based on your hard work, based on merit, based on how the person has contributed to the society while he has been climbing the ladder. But once you are at a particular level, once you have climbed the ladder to a particular level, I think it becomes more and more in terms of how much you can prove your party loyalty, how much you can be able to serve the goals that the leaders expect from you. So today's party, I believe, is a combination of professionalism and a loyalty, and basically proving your loyalty to the leader. So if you look at the specialized agencies, I mean, the China, since Xi Jinping has come to power, he has doled out the Central Discipline Commission, and then he has set up several other mechanisms which are basically looking at influence ops. The Ministry of State Security is looking at their influence operations across the world. So if you deeply go into analyzing how much professionalism is how much professionalism is visible in these structures, I think you will realize that one is the element of quancy. One is that already, if you are a princeling, or if you are already, if you have a reach into the system, you'll obviously climb the ladder faster. Membership to the CPC is obviously a kind of a prerequisite. Then where you're based in terms of which province, coming from which background, all these things matter. And then finally, how much you have contributed to the society, how much you have been able to achieve. For instance, if you look at the PLA General Chang Yaoshia's kind of removal from the post, it was largely driven by the fact that he was not able to deliver what Xi Jinping expected in terms of reunification with Taiwan. And then he said that we perhaps may not be fully equipped, or rather, we do not believe in this kind of policy to reunite Taiwan by force. So it can depend on ideological sway away from the leader, or it can also depend on the fact that you have certain other inherent motives that the leaders do not want you to pursue. That may be the reason of the fallout. And when you are actually looking at these specific agencies that Xi Jinping has put in place, I think these are all to kind of instill his control over the people who are looking at these aspects of society or work. And it's not necessarily driven by the fact that these are the best professional people available to do the job, but rather it's driven by the fact that whom the leader trusts to do the job. So, in that sense, to kind of comment on the professionalism in these aspects is slightly difficult.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
we yeah.
yeah, we
Uh,
have two remaining questions left. So the next question is from Lieutenant General S.L. Narasimhan from Gateway House, Mumbai. He is saying that unified nation market is not a new concept. It started in 2012. What is your take on its progression? And the second question is this from SL Lieutenant General Narasimhan. He is asking that the attendance in the Lianghui was less this time. What is your opinion on the impact it has on the governance?
Okay, again, I think we need to look at how the media commentators have talked about the two sessions. They have said that it is a very important, pivotal connecting point. So, if you look at the goal of the unified market, and that it was set out a very long time back, then this particular two sessions, they have made sure that it becomes realized on the ground. So even if the goal was set much earlier in the day, the emphasis has been on to check the progress, how it has been implemented on the ground, how much China has progressed in terms of achieving this goal, which is what Li Qiang tried to stress in his work report, that we have achieved so much. Perhaps we have come half the way, and then half the way is still left for us to cover. So, in terms of written blueprints to project implementations, the 5-year plans they're just they're basically outlines that have been put on paper. But how much groundwork has been done is kind of they kind of keep reviewing it in every plenum, and every two sessions that is held. So I think if you look from that perspective, the goal of achieving a unified market is something that has become more concrete, more visible, more consistent. I think that's how I would look at it, and not exactly something which is, like Sir said, it's not new, but it is something which has been a focus on which China is really focusing deeply in that sense. And what does it reflect about the less attendance in the two sessions? I think it could be one indicator of how many people have actually been removed from those chairs. So if you look at the number of people who've been purged from the party over the last few years, some of these chairs would have belonged to those people who should have been in. They have failed to fill in those positions that were emptied. Another aspect, if you look at why the attendance is less, is because perhaps there has been a kind of uh, um, continuous re-evaluation of these reports. We just had the fourth plenum, then during the two sessions, and again during this 15th year plan, they have also laid out this entire massive structure of how the local governments will report to the middle provincial level, and then to the state level, then to the central level. So there is a multi-level evaluation of these reports. So I think many of these people have already submitted their reports to the central government, and perhaps did not feel it necessary to be kind of relook into those reports in being present during the two sessions. So, and another angle that could come to the fore is that during the two sessions, Xi Jinping it could even reflect on Xi Jinping's leadership in terms of how he's losing control over who will be picked up in the next generation, or rather he's finding it difficult to pick up people for the next leadership. So in that sense, these are two, three things that come to my mind that could be possibly the reasons for the less attendance. And the all the laws were actually passed with quite a majority, except for two or three exceptions. I was myself a little, I still wanted to get into the names of the people who had actually restrained or put an objection in terms of passing of these laws. But I think it's largely optics. It's largely something that is a namesake. For namesake, you have three people who just are there to object to the passing the law. So I don't think that really has a huge implication on anything else. But the lessening of the attendance obviously tells us, these two, three tales about how either the men have gone missing, they have been purged, or he's still on the way to look out for new people.
The next question is from Rahul Sharma, who is a research intern at ICS. His question is, as per the Chinese government's report, China's carbon emissions are expected to peak by 2030, and it also aims to achieve carbon neutrality by 2060. What efforts is China making to reach these targets, and what challenges might face to reach there? And could the Chinese government also use environmental concerns and climate policies as a tool to strengthen its governance and political control?
Yes, absolutely. I think there has been a lot of debate on China's emerging leadership in the climate in the field of climate governance, and not only China but also India, and how both these two countries have a kind of opportunity to emerge as leaders in terms of climate governance, since the US has already, withdrawn from its commitment to the Paris entire climate governance structure. So I think these two countries have a lot of scope to put forward their own agendas in terms of how they see not just domestically, but also how do they see other countries leveling up to the promises that they keep making on the climate issues.
Okay, so we don't have any more questions in the chat box.
Yeah, if I can ask any other audience members, if you have questions, you can raise hand. And so, yeah, Professor. Yeah.
Yeah, so we still have a little time. And just quickly get in comment come clarification. So, since the broader paradigm that you have sought to locate this discussion is this whole notion of development and how it is now being recast. At some point, I did hear you mention that they are uh, they are looking at bringing in place again the welfare state. Now, what would you say are the differences between? I mean, to many people, the whole basis of the Chinese state in 49 was the iron rice bowl and the five guarantees, and therefore the welfare component was very strong throughout. So how do you see the newer thrust or the newer packaging that is sought to be given for this idea of the welfare state?
I think they're since they have talking about Marxist-Leninist, this Chinese characteristic of development, this has been their ultimate goal. This has been something that they have been looking forward to ever since they put in place the productive forces. And their first kind of instance was to achieve that kind of parity, that kind of income, per capita income, that they could feed everybody and at least become self-sustaining in terms of feeding their own people. Now, when they are repackaging the welfare component, I think the emphasis is more on be able to provide every citizen a kind of a comfortable living where he can have access to basic technology, basic education, basic health care, especially when they grow old. And doing away with some of these older practices of household registration, doing away with these kind of practices that were an obstacle to provide an overall welfare to the people. So I think it's important in the sense that they believe, at least they believe, whether it is true or not is something to be debated, but at least they believe that they are much nearer to this goal of becoming a welfare society that they envision. So I think that way the Chinese state is able to they have this ability to foresee for the next 5 to 10 years where they want to go and how they want to provide these public goods to its people, and make it realizable, make it practically possible on ground. So that is something that China has been, it has been boasting of during all these plenums and the 2 session meetings that it has held, that it is able to achieve at least 50% of the goals that they have marked for themselves every time. So I think that this is how, this is where this entire repackaging gives them a kind of confidence to, or provides them that face to kind of position their narrative in front of everyone, that we are not just kind of placing these goals, but we are actually achieving these goals. So I think in that sense, there is a greater cohesion in terms of policy making, in terms of making it possible for people to live a better life, get better education, health. So in that sense, I would, they have not yet surpassed that phase of proletarian commitment to working forces. They have not been able to throw away that kind of practices, those kind of practices that have become ingrained as a part of their system, where they do not believe liberty is something that a labor should think about. In fact, they are trying to shift that entire narrative through the use of technology. But I do believe that they are able to, they think that they are nearer to their goal of this achieving this welfare state.
Okay, thank you.
Should others have questions you can raise? We have a couple of minutes before we draw a curtain close for this session. If anyone, yeah, I think, yeah, has been really, thank you, Bhavna. And when I see, okay, there's a comment. Yeah, thank you, Bhavna, once again, really very comprehensive. And actually, your Q&A actually gave us a more, broader, food for us to really think about. And some of the very provocative questions, like what General Narasimhan asked you, why was there less attendance? Yeah, definitely. A lot of military members were purged. I think this time it was more than, I think almost 60 people were purged. And I think it was one of the highest in the reform period, especially if you see so many, military leaders getting purged and also losing their seats. And definitely that has implications to China's foreign policy governance, if you have to really look at. And as you have rightly said, that the Taiwan question, comes back to Xi Jinping, why it was the narrative is on that. And also your discussion with regard to what Professor Alcazar asked, like with regard to is China moving towards welfare state? Yeah, definitely it's not as per the OECD definition of welfare statism, but it has its own mixed approach or model of how to develop itself. And much, things to really, as for scholars of China, to really engage with. And thank you, Bhavna. And I see like the number of, members in the audience, like, it shows that how interesting that the topic is and the theme of on China's politics is about. And also how, with regard to Professor Mohanty's question, whether professionalization and specialized agencies have really, yeah, if you see, there are, if the party, especially with regard to foreign policy, the parties have always taken the shot, but mostly in as economic, social welfare, domestic politics, it is mostly the state that has really taken, agencies have taken more in the last, especially during Xi Jinping period, we could see this. Nonetheless, thank you, Bhavna. It's been really interesting. And I thank ICS and all the audience members. Without you, this seminar wouldn't be that, interesting. And I hand over to Supradeep here. Thank you, Supradeep. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. With this, we come to an end of today's seminar. We thank Dr. Bhavna Singh and Dr. Bhim Subba for gracing today's seminar with their presence and for giving us their precious time. We also thank the audience for joining us today. The video of today's seminar shall be available on the ICS's YouTube channel. We extend a warm invitation to all for the upcoming book discussion titled Gender Discrimination at Work in Urban China, The Paradox of Equality and Difference in the Women's Liberation Movement, authored by Dr. Usha Chandran, scheduled for 18th April 2026 at the Conference Room 1, International Center, New Delhi. And details about the book discussion as well as the upcoming Wednesday seminars can be found on the ICS website. Also, you can subscribe to our newsletter for regular updates. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.